So, coming into that position of rest and ease on your back or taking a good upright seat, you're going to go ahead and close your eyes or let your lids become very heavy so that your focus is a little bit more inside than outside. And my work today is all about the central channel. So, in yoga, we have this idea that there's a central channel of energy that runs just in front of your spine, and you can picture it as a column of light through the center of your body, running from your base, your at the bottom of your pelvis, all the way up through your torso, passing through the heart space center. So it's in line with your physical heart, but over towards the middle of your body at the bottom of your breastbone. So the column of light runs through there, and it runs all the way up through your head, even beyond the crown of your head. So just picture this column of light running through your body. And then imagine your breath coming in through the top of your head and landing in the center of your heart. And then as you exhale, moving back from the center of your heart all the way out through the crown of your head. We'll just do a couple more rounds of that little breath and light meditation. So the breath coming down through the central column of light to the center of your heart, and then moving out through your body, out past the crown of your head. This is just a visualization, and if you can't see it, just let the words land and notice your breath. And then let the visualization go. Notice your whole body, or attempts to feel everything from crown of the head to toes. And then open your eyes, and we all get to come on our backs. So I'm going to move my blanket now underneath my head. You can use a blanket underneath your head or just lie back on your mat, whatever is most comfortable for you. And then walk your feet out like one step away from your hips. So you're in a little bit long position with feet past knees. And lie here just for a moment, letting your body settle into your mat. And if you've been lying on your mat, just notice the difference between where your feet were and where they are now. Good. Your eyes can be opened or closed. Plant down with your feet. So really notice your feet from your heel through your big toe mound to your tippy toes. And then act like you could drag your feet back towards your hips. So there's just a little bit more engagement through the backs of your legs and down into your feet. And then release that activation. And either repeat that or walk your feet one step forward with heels down, toes up towards the sky. Root down through your heels and pull your feet back towards your hips. And again, I'm not moving anything. I'm acting like my feet could draw back. So it's an isometric contraction. And then release that activation. And now step your feet underneath your knees. And you're going to take the soles of your feet together-ish. So I've really got my big toes and my inner heels touching, but my knees are pointed out to the side, and the pinky edge of my foot rests on my mat. And I'm going to, same thing here. I'm going to press down with the sides of my feet and drag my heels like they could meet up towards my hips without increasing the depth of my back bend. I'm trying to keep my back the same and just work my legs. And then stay in that bound angle or butterfly shape as you walk your feet one step forward, knees wide, at pinky edge of your mat, rest on the mat, and drag your feet like they could come back to your hips. But keep your feet down. Let your back have its natural curve. Another breath. And then release and walk your feet back underneath your hips. And then we're going to take our feet nice and wide and let your knees rock in. They do not need to touch. Mine don't have that much internal rotation. If yours touch, that's fine, but just let your knees fall in just a little bit or a lot of it. And then press down with your feet. Oh, and if that bothers your knees, point your knees back up to the ceiling and don't do the internal rotation, but do the activation. And then press down through your feet and drag your feet back towards your hips yet again. And release. And then walk your feet one step forward in the internal rotation. So knees point a little bit towards one another or not, depending on your sensitivity. Press your feet down, drag your feet back. So always with my classes, you get to choose exactly your level of activation and ultimately the position of your body. Gotta release. Walk your feet back underneath your knees. Take a breath in. Eyes can close or stay open. And let that whole breath go. And then draw your right knee into your chest. So this is Apanasana, or wind releasing pose, one of my favorite pose names. So I'm just hugging my knee in for a little hip flexor release. Good. Just a few rounds of breath, letting that be a little bit of a passive stretch. And then set your right knee down, draw your left leg in. The side can feel very different. Go ahead and pull that left knee in as much as you're comfortable with, and you could hold on the back of your thigh or your shin as you just let your hips be heavy. You're breathing your normal, natural breath in and out. Release your hands, release your feet. Walk your feet wide on your mat again. And now we're going to do a slow windshield wiper. So I'm going to take both knees over to my left, and I'm just letting my hips do whatever they want to do. And then rock your knees back up to the ceiling and take your knees over to the right, coming onto the sides of my feet in this slow little swivel. Back up to center, left side again. Back through center, right side. 2 more times, just like that, slow and deliberative movement. So nothing moves too fast. You're just exploring the slow, controlled movement of your legs and hips. A little bit of a gentle twist. Maybe notice how in each consecutive round, your knees come a little bit closer to the floor or not. All right, last time to the right. Knees point up to the ceiling. Walk your feet in. Take one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. Slow, deep breaths here, in and out. Good. And again, come into that awareness of that central column supported by the floor. So it is usually in a more extended position. Most of us, when we sit upright, we have some amount of compensation, some movement somewhere, a little rounding, a tuck under. So we might not have the length of that central column that we do when we're lying right here. And then release your hands. Roll yourself over to one of your sides. You get to choose which one. And then press yourself up and take a seat. I'm going to move my blanket back underneath my hips. All right, stretch your legs out now. And we get to do feet and toes. So those of you who took my class for years, did you miss feet and toes? I'm hoping you did it over the course of almost 5 years I've been gone. You're going to cross your right ankle, and I am mirroring over your left leg. Take your left hand and take your fingers all the way through each and every toe. So if it's been a while, this can be massively uncomfortable. So, you don't have to quite get all the way in there, or maybe you take your fingers out if it's causing a lot of discomfort. And then you're going to pull your toes back towards your own shin bone. And then move your foot like a wave. So I'm trying to roll through my foot and pull your foot into a point. And then I go the opposite direction. I'm going to pull the top of my foot forward and then roll through my big toe mound all the way to my toes back. This is dorsiflexion. And then I do the articulation through the bones of my feet to pull my toes forward and come into plantar flexion. That's a point. And then one more time, maybe a little faster this time. And then come into neutral. Widen your fingers, trying to create even more space between each and every toe. Slide your fingers out and relax your toes. And then grab each toe and turn it like you could unscrew your toes. I always say they're firmly attached. They do not move. But you wiggle side to side and you should get some little rotation in your toes. And it's interesting to notice if your toes rotate or they don't move. And then go ahead and give yourself a little bit of a foot massage. So I'm just trying to palpate and mush and wiggle and rub. And then I do a little loving pat, 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 pat. Reach down, hold your ankle or shin, pick up your foot, shake your foot. Again, like the whole foot could come off. Your foot is loose and floppy. And notice if it's like, that's the sound your foot is making. Or if it like really, really, really just kind of shakes. And then extend your right leg forward, peek at your toes. See if you notice a difference, right and left. And then cross your left leg over for a second side. So we're getting a little hip opener here with that external rotation through your left leg. And then you get to take care of your feet, which I just think are so important and don't get enough attention. So again, I'm going to pull my foot back, drawing my toes straight towards my shin bone. And then I do the opposite. I push through my foot and I pull my toes down as if they could touch my heel, which they cannot. And then I'm going to push into the arch of my foot so that it rolls up as I pull my toes back. And then again, rolling through your foot, you pull down until your toes point. And then last time, push through your foot, pull your toes back, pull through your foot, pulling your toes into a pointed plantar flexion. Come into neutral. Widen out those fingers. Create as much space as you can between your toes. And then slide your fingers out from your toes. Soften and release those toes. Give a little wiggle. Turning right, turning left. Each toe. Turning right, turning left. Turning right, turning left. Going all the way down to the very smallest toe, your pinky toe. Seeing if it'll wiggle. Extend your legs out and forward. Bend up your knees. Okay, so your hands might hold you back behind yourself, or you might find your arms wrapped around your shins. And then spread out your toes on your mat, and then just lift your big toe. I know if it's been a while, you're like, wait a minute, my toes don't lift anymore. It will come back, or you'll learn it for the first time. For real, you can rewire your brain. Put your big toe down. That was a long hold. Lift up all your little toes and widen those pinky toes, those smallest toes, away from your big toe. And then settle your widened toes back down on the mat. Keep them wide and lift your big toe. Release your big toe. Lift up all 10 toes. Relax your 10 toes down. Do that again. Fan up your toes. Keep your big toes up. Put your little toes back down on the mat. Lift up your little toes. Put your big toes down. We're going to switch again. Big toes up, little toes down, little toes up, Big toe releases, all 10 toes up in the air. Widen out those toes. Keep them wide as you fan them back down to the floor. And then release your arms if you were hugging and holding. Stretch out your legs again. And shake a, shake a, shake a, shake a, shake a. Alrighty. And then we're going to come into a little bent leg position. So you could keep your hips on your blanket. I'm going to take it out, or you could use a towel if you're at home, anything that could provide a little bit of a boost and support. But I'm going to go just mat, fold my right shin in and take my left leg back behind me. Okay, so again, if this is uncomfortable just sitting, you might need more support for your hips. And I'm in a little Z sit, I sometimes call this, or shin box is another name for it. There are lots of names, it doesn't really matter. And then all we're gonna do is a little back and forth. So take your hands back behind you, and then I'm gonna go ahead and roll. So I'll roll all the way, so my knees point in the other direction. And then I'm gonna roll all the way back and around. Now I'll do that one more time. Roll towards your right. Actually, that would be your left. And then roll back to your right. Good, last time. Roll towards your left and roll back towards your right. Good, stretch your legs out in front of you. We're gonna come back to that position, but first, we're gonna take an Om in. So take a moment, sit tall. Notice how your hips feel after all that rolling and the little, your exterior rotation in the footwork. Okay, maybe your hands are back behind you for support here, or they're at your heart center. Your lids are heavy or your eyes closed. Just take a breath in. Exhale that breath out. Inhale in. Open your eyes, release your hands. Take your left shin in front and your right leg back behind. With your hands back behind you, you can lean back a little bit. You could stay up on fingertips. And all we're going to do is that same rock. So I'm going to rotate towards my right and then back to my left. And then rotate right and rock around left. And then rotate last time right. And then rock left. Stay here in your left-sided twist. Lift up through your spine and turn yourself towards your left. So my left shin is forward. I'm twisting towards my left. I'm mirroring you. Plant down through your left fingertips. Lift your spine up nice and long. Inhale back through center. Take your left hand off to the left. Reach your right arm up and over. Just take a little side stretch here. So I'm asymmetric. My right hip is up off of the floor as I weight down through my left hip, but I'm staying anchored through my right leg so I don't fall over. And then inhale, come back up, very likely to happen in my yoga practice. And then reach out and over towards your left. And you might need a block underneath your hand or a blanket or a prop, and then you're gonna go ahead and side bend the other way. Or you could put your hand on your own leg and use your leg as a prop. And just reach up, breathe into that whole left side waist. Good, and then come back. And I forgot to say, if this leg back behind is too much, you can do this whole sequence with your leg extended out and forward, or you can even have that knee off the floor and put a block underneath your knee, right? So for a little bit different movement. So we're gonna lean back and walk our feet around to the other side. So now my right shin is in front. Sit up super tall and take that twist off towards your right. Hips stay down, spine stays long. Breathe into your belly. Can you get more anchored through your hips? Can you find more length through your vertebra? The answer might be no, it doesn't actually matter. Good. Inhale yourself back so that your belly faces your front shin. Take your right hand off to the right. Reach your left arm up. Your left hip might be light on your mat. Your right leg is down and your left shin is down so that you can find lots of length and some balance. And this is actually the harder side. So as you come up, put your left hand down. And again, you might need a little prop support or not. Maybe your leg is tired and you need to extend your left leg out. You're going to lean towards your left right arm high and breathe into your side waist. Good. Come all the way back upright. And go ahead and switch your legs again. So now I'm going to take my left leg in and my right leg out. So now I am in that. This is Janu Shirshasana legs, our head to knee pose, but we're not doing that pose. And then take your hands behind your head and with your elbows a little bit forward. Feel like there's almost a tractioning action. So imagine your spine gets long, and then we're just going to take our elbows and our whole upper body a little bit or a lot towards the left, and then back upright, and then go a little bit towards the right and back upright, and just go back and forth in your own breath rhythm, but explore the space with control and with a sense of both strength and ease. So there's no strain, even though you'll probably hear my voice gets a little tight as I come into the fullest extension of the pose. It's because this is actually core work. It works your obliques, which are part of your core. They're your side core. So I'm still moving around that central channel. Good. Reach your arms up and overhead. Just take a big breath here. Feel the fullest length in your spine. That column of light extends. And then exhale, send your hands back down to the mat. We'll switch up our legs. So extend your left leg out, then your right knee in. You could do this whole sequence sitting on a blanket or on a block. You can use a block support or blanket support underneath the bent leg side knee. Keep your legs a little awake, they're not in Shavasana. And keep your spine long so you're not in Slumpasana. And then take your hands behind your head again. So elbows a little forward so you find some ease in your shoulders. Find the fullest length up through your vertebral column. And then just take a little lean. You don't have to go very far for this to be just the right amount of work. Or maybe you're practically touching the floor with your elbow. You've got so much strength and steadiness. And you're moving in your own time, in your own rhythm, just taking a little side lean back and forth and noticing the work of the pose, but also just the great sense of ease in the movement. I can really feel the back of my body on either side. And it feels really good, like it's working, but in a kind of delicious, super strong, but good for my body kind of way. Good, come back up to the middle. Both arms reach up, find the maximum amount of length through your spinal column. And then set your hands back down and stretch both legs out in front of you. All righty. So we're gonna flip into hands and knees. So I'm on carpet and I have a squishy mat, but even so, I'm gonna grab my blanket and put it underneath my knees for a little extra care. I love gentle classes because we have permission to take care of ourselves. Really, we have permission in every class, but we don't normally choose to do that. So I'm gonna take good care of my knees with a little extra blanket love. And then I'm here in hands and knees. So you could do this with your hands on a chair, just leaning over if your knees didn't love the extra pressure. You actually could do this sitting upright and putting your hands on the chair, because all we're going to do is walk our hands. So I'm walking my hands right and left and just picking up one hand and then picking up the other. Good. And then you might keep doing this, or maybe you rest in child's pose, or you're going to take your left arm up and back behind you and just stretch it back. So I'm doing a one arm hands and knees position. So really press down through your left fingertips and then take, right fingertips, and take your left hand down and then do the opposite side. Pick your right arm up and stretch it back behind you. So I'm pressing down through my left fingertips. I'm just really stretching that arm back behind me in extension. Good, and take your hand back down. And then turn your toes under and shift your hips any amount back towards your heels, and then come a little bit forward. And then do that again, just shift back and shift forward. And then shift back 2 more times, just like that. And shift forward. Last time, shift back and with breath. And shift forward. And now I'm going to switch the position of my hands. I'm on the back of my hands with my fingers turned in towards one another. And I'm keeping a little bit of weight back over my calves while I stretch my wrists. And I'm working to get my thumb down towards the floor, even though it does not really touch. A little. You can probably see my hyperextension here through my elbows. Don't try and mimic my elbows. All right, flip your hands back around. And we're going to do a little thread the needle action. So take your right arm high. I'm going to twist away from you and bring your right arm down to the mat and rest your head down. So if your head doesn't rest, you take one of those blocks or a book or a water bottle, and you rest your head down on the block. And then press the right arm, the back of your right hand, or whatever part of your arm touches, down into the mat or the floor, and just feel that activation through your shoulder girdle. Two more breaths here. Notice where you feel your breath. Can you imagine it moving down that central column, even in this twisted position? Come on back up, reach your right arm back up and high. Set your right arm down. Lift your left arm, twist open. Again, big breath here across your rib cage to your fingertips. And then scoop underneath yourself. And again, you can rest your head down on mat or block. And then the back of your left hand, your left arm roots down into the floor. So the more I press, the more I feel my muscles in my back work. So you get to choose how much effort you put in and how much sensation you're currently requiring. Some days we want like more sensation, we want to really feel. Some days we need a little less work. Again, picture your breath moving up and down that central column that lives just in front of your spine in your energy body. So you can see that as a metaphor, right? Like if we did if we did surgery, we would not find an energy column. We wouldn't find a Sushumna Nadi. Okay, so we're going to take child's pose, and you got options for child's pose too. So for some of you, resting your hips all the way back will feel fine. Your knees don't mind that. For some of you, hips up child's pose is going to feel so much better. So just keep your hips up, right? It's puppy pose. Head rests down, and you might even want something underneath your head, right? Depending on where your hips are and what feels comfortable. I'm going to demo the hip up variation. And then walk your hands way far forward. So my elbows are lifted up away from the mat. Take a breath here. Pick up your rib cage away from the floor. Press down with your left hand and maybe lift your right fingertips, right hand up off the mat. Maybe you might just activate and feel that work in your shoulder. And then rest your right hand back down. Press down with your right fingertips and lift your left hand any amount off the floor.
And again, that could be an imaginative exercise or an actual movement. Put your hand back down, release, and just breathe. Bend your elbows, let them rest on the mat, forearms down. Walk your hands back underneath your shoulders. Push your hands down into the mat to come back to hands and knees. Grab a hold of your blocks and place them at the top of your mat. We're going to shift. So I'm going to, from hands and knees with my hands on blocks, I'm going to pull my right knee into my belly. So I'm just lifting up my right foot, right knee, and I'm hugging it as high and as I can, like that Apanasana on the floor, knee to chest position. We did this the same. And then I'm going to try and step forward. Maybe that takes a bigger adjustment. You have to lift your hands. No worries. So do what you need to do. My hands are on blocks. Now I'm in knee down lunge pose. So from knee down lunge, I'm going to spin my back shin towards the right. So my left shin moves towards the right. And I'm going to stand up on this one knee position. So again, if that bothers your knee, you could keep your hands down and just stay in the lunge position. All right, otherwise I'm in gate pose, Parigasana. And this is a bit of a balancing work. In this pose, I'm gonna just shift my weight forward and back. And again, what do you feel in your knees? Take good care of them as you move your legs. So this is some balancing work, just to shift forward and back. And it's a stretch through my hips. And I find my core just naturally comes on board as I maintain balance, moving my hips forward and back. Good. If you want more load, meaning more work, move your hands. So I'm just swimming my hands around any which way. It doesn't really matter, but they're adding to the challenge of the pose. Just a couple more rounds. Hear my breath start to go. It's becoming work. All right, and then turn your shin, take your hands back down. You're in knee down lunge, and then normal knee down lunge. Arms up and overhead or hands on thigh, and then place your hands back. We're going to reverse the action. So the higher your blocks, the easier this is to pick up your foot, keep your knee tucked in really close, and then set your knee back down and just shimmy your hips from side to side. Good, we're gonna do the other side. So pulling, this is my left knee, close to my belly. I really tug in and I lift it up high. And then I go ahead and step forward. So you make whatever adjustments you need to do to get that foot all the way forward. And then I'm gonna spin my back shin and lift up, hands on hips. So I'm in this gate pose variation, and all I'm going to do is shift my weight forward and back. And it's all right if your knee comes further forward than your ankle, as long as your knee feels okay. And that would be the front knee in this case. And I'm just working the pose. So if your knee bothers you, you would just stay a little further back, and you're just checking out your knee flexion, your ability to bend and straighten a little bit into your left knee. Good, and there should be a little work for your legs here, but not too much. And then maybe you add the swing and swoop of your arms, creating more load in the pose. I'm really moving my whole body and staying in that rock forward and back, adding to the challenge of the pose. Good. Again, just a few more breaths here, in and out. And then go ahead, spin that back shin, take your hands back down, and then we're going to reverse the process. So I'm doing my best. So I got a little press down with my hands to lift my knee back into my belly, and I set my knee down and just shimmy those hips. And the good news is you're at home, whatever just happened,
It's just between you and the device you're watching me on. All right, move your blocks to the side. We're gonna stand up. So in my classes, I always offer the option of just coming up to standing, or you're gonna transition through downward facing dog pose. We won't be there very long. So I turn my toes under, press fingertips down, lift hips super high up into the air, take a deep bend in your knees, and then walk your hands back really quickly until you're in forward fold. My knees are bent, and let my head go. And then push into your feet to come back up to take our mountain pose, Tadasana. And then we finish our little dance by reaching arms up and overhead and just stretch through your whole spine. And then hands settle down in your heart. And you can feel what you feel. So it might be different than when you started this yoga class. Maybe you can notice the alignment in that central column of light that runs through your body. Does it feel more upright? Can you notice your breath moving down and back up this imaginary column of light, the Shushumna Nadi? Release your hands. Open your eyes if you close them. Move any props that are on your mat off of your mat. And here's where I'm going to use that chair prop. So you could do this at a wall. You could do this with no props whatsoever. So if you're using a chair on your mat, you want to have at least 2 legs of the chair on your mat so it does not move. I have the chair seat facing me. If you needed to have a higher up grip, you could turn the chair around and use the back of the chair. Or again, a ball works perfectly fine. So from the top of your mat, where your chair is, you're going to take a big breath in and then exhale. So this could either be a full forward fold or a half forward fold. And then I step my right leg back behind me into a lunge pose using the chair or wall or blocks. And then hugging in through center here, I'm either going to keep my hands on the chair, or maybe I walk my hands back and lift my arms up. So this would be high lunge pose. So just for the purpose of balance, we're using a prop or not, right? And then I get super steady and tall here. And then take your hands back down to the chair or blocks or wall. And then we're going to take a little bit of a twist. If you're using the wall, your right hand would be here. And you're going to twist yourself towards the left. So it's just like that thread the needle, only we're in a lunge pose. And then bring your hand back down. Shift your weight, step your right foot forward, adjust your stance. And then half forward fold. You could be in full forward fold, knees bent or straight. Take a breath. Release that whole breath. We'll get to do the other side. Move your left leg back behind you in lunge pose. Hold steady in your pose. Again, many options. Standing here, coming up to the back of your chair or the wall, bringing your arms all the way up and overhead, high lunge. So if this is a big balance challenge for you, please feel free to use your prop support so you can really get steady in the pose and notice your breathing. I know there's a little bend in my back knee because of my hip extension. So maybe your back knee is bent too. We do what we can, and we do just what we need to do. Take your hands down, keep your left hand down, and rotate. So I'm turning my spine, especially from my shoulder blade spine, or that's my abbreviation for the part of your spine that's in the middle of your shoulder blades or your thoracic spine. Good. Take your right hand back down. Again, rocking off your back foot, come forward. I'm in half forward fold. Maybe you're in full forward fold. Press down through your feet. Stand back up. Reach arms up and overhead. Settle your hands back to your heart center. And notice once again the difference here. Let your breath expand into the front and the back of you. Notice the strength and stability through your legs. And then release your hands down. Alrighty, I just noticed that I didn't turn on my side light, so I'm going to do that. I know it's a live class. It probably helps you can see me because the rain started. I got even darker and cloudier. And then we're going to come into our next pose, which is triangle pose using our chair. So again, you could use the wall or a block on the floor or your own shin. So step your right foot back and your left foot forward. Take a big breath in here and expand. And then exhale, come on down to your chair. Again, or block or wall or your own shin. And just breathe into your triangle pose and expand in every direction. And then bend your back knee and straighten your back knee. And do that a few times. Bending. Notice that external rotation as you point your knee directly in line with your toes. So I'm widening out through my back thigh. And then come and rest in the pose. Take a big breath in here. Push down and come back upright. Release. So you have the option of just turning yourself around. I'm going to move my chair over to the other side. So this time you've got your left foot forward and your right leg back. And again, I'm mirroring. Adjust your stance to where you need to stand for comfort through your legs. What feels right in your body? And then big breath in as you lift up. And then exhale, lean over and take your hand down to your chair, your wall, your block, your own shin. And then again, we do this little work in the back leg. So you're going to bend your back knee and keep working your knee out over your toes. And then stretch and straighten. So I can feel that stretch in the front leg and the activation in my back leg. So that should be a little bit interesting, I hope. Good, couple more rounds. In our Trikonasana, triangle pose. And then pause in your pose, expand out in every direction. Good, press your feet to lift your body, release your arms, and bring your feet back together. You can wiggle or walk. All right, that was all we were doing with our chair. Okay, so let's see. Oh, I lied, actually. We're gonna do one more balancing pose, but this time I'm gonna use the back of my chair. Again, you can use the wall. I thought there was another one. So you can use your wall, your chair, maybe your balance is so steady you can just stand. So I'm gonna stand on my right leg and bring my left leg over. So I'm gonna sit super low and hold onto my chair. So my toes are down on the mat. I'm bending into my front knee, the standing leg knee. You can either stay here holding on or bring your arms up and overhead, eagle pose. Everything hugs into the middle. Good. And then take your forearms as close as they'll come together, maybe together, and press your forearms together and hug your legs into one another. So you're hugging in into that imaginary central column. And breathe while you're here. Again, you can hold your hands onto a wall or chair. And then release your arms. Unwrap your legs. All right. Garudasana, other side, eagle pose. Now I'm standing on my left and I cross my right leg and I bend my knees. You could bend any amount, a little or a lot. And then again, hold on for balance or reach your arms up. And my toes are staying on the mat today. Maybe you're doing the full pose and you have your cross leg elevated. And then go ahead and settle your arms down. I'm just pressing my forearms in towards one another. Maybe they touch, maybe they don't. That's not important. But you're hugging in everything into center. And that column of breath moving up and down. Noticing breath maintaining the length of your spine. Again, this should start to feel like work on that standing leg. And then release. Oh, shake it out. Let everything go. Now we're done with the chair. Hallelujah. All right. So the good news is we get to come down to the floor. The not so good news is we still have a couple more poses before Shavasana, which is always the best part of class. So come on down. Okay, so we're going to start with a little side plank work. I know, not everybody's favorite pose. So you could put that blanket underneath your hip if you felt like you had pokey bits, or underneath your elbow. Those are the parts that people tell me bother them. So I'm lying on my left side with my knees bent and my arm down. And the first thing we're going to do is just prep that left shoulder. So all I'm doing is rolling my shoulder with a little bit of weight. My right hand is down to support. I'm just going to roll my shoulder around in preparation and then go the other direction. So that's always harder. So just notice how that's brain work and body work. And then integrate the head of your arm bone. Find that column of light all the way from crown of head to hips. And you might just stay here in this version of side plank, or maybe you press down into your arm and lift your hips off of the mat to come into a deeper variation of side plank pose. Just breathe while you're here. Take your head back, take your ribs in, push down into the floor. And then lower your hips back down. Take a breath before we transition over to side two. Bring your legs around, all the way over, knees bent. Okay, now my right forearm is down, hand forward, and I'm just going to do a little shoulder warm up. So I roll my shoulder, and this is called closed chain because you're touching something and moving it at the same time. So it's got support, and that can be challenging. And then go in the opposite direction, which is brain work and body work. I love how like my whole body moves, like trying to help that shoulder out. All right, find the integration. You're hugging your legs in towards center. Everything moves to the middle. You push down into the floor. Maybe you lift your hips. So a little side plank variation. Take your head back and your ribs in. I'm just holding that top hand onto my hip, or maybe your fingers are holding into the support of the floor. Either way, you're breathing while you're here, pushing the floor away. Good. Lower your hips back down. Walk yourself back to upright. So you can replace that blanket underneath your hips. Bring your right shin bone forward and your left leg back again. So again, you can have your back shin tucked in super close or wide. You can have that leg extended out in front of you if that knee does not like that rolled in position. I'm doing a little 90-90 work. And this time, lift your arms up off of the mat and curl your knuckles down towards the floor like you're revving your engine. And take a little breath as you stretch your arms out and away from your torso, still maintaining the upright position through all of your vertebrae. And then release the curl of your wrist, but keep soft fists. And we're going to just twist from side to side. So think of yourself like a super old school washing machine. And you're the central agitator. And all you're doing is rotating around that central axis. So energy channel and spinal column. And most of us don't have a ton of twisting movement through our vertebra. So don't force this action. You're just working the twist. And once again, using those oblique, those side core muscles back and forth with breath. Good. Pause in the middle. Either stay here or lean from your hips, spine nice and long. So imagine that column of light from hips to crown. as you lean over your right shin. Good, so notice the work through your hips, the length through your spine. Press down with your hips to come back upright. Lower your arms down. And we're going to take a bigger variation of the twist that we did earlier. So this time, bring your hands around over to the right. Maybe stay here or bend both of your elbows. And then again, another potential deepening of the pose as you walk your left fingertips forward. Maybe your hands are on a blanket or block. Maybe you're just releasing yourself out and over, taking a deep forward fold twist. Side bend, very efficient. Walk back with your hands back behind you for support. Switch your legs. Walk around to the second side. Again, reach your arms out to the sides, plant down through your hips. To make this pose easier, you would keep that right leg extended, or you're just bending it back behind you if your knee is okay. And then pull your knuckles up towards the ceiling just for a moment and press through your arms. Good, breathe while you're here. And then go ahead and point your knuckles down towards the floor and push through your wrist bones. And then come into neutral. And again, you're doing a gentle twist from side to side, a little agitator-like action, rotating. Notice your breath. Good, stay long through your spine. Come through center, and then just lean out and over your front shin. So a little different approach to core work. So I'm still holding. You don't have to suck your belly in or anything. Your body naturally activates to hold you in place. And luckily the floor is super close, so the risk is really low when it's work. Inhale, come back up. And then again, a little bit of a deeper twist. So I'm bringing both hands down, and if you just barely touch, that's okay too. Or maybe you can really get down in there and lower, and then walk your right hand out and away. Anchor through your hips, push through your fingertips. Good, walk yourself back up. Take your hands back behind you. Go ahead and take your legs out and forward, and sitting up now, you're going to do that windshield wiper action through both knees, just rocking right and left, right and left. Rolling across your hips. Good, stretch your legs out and forward. Use your hands on either side of you. Maybe you need that blanket support. So if you're here, blanket or block underneath your hips so you can find that tall column of light. You might choose to stay here, or any amount lean forward and take your hands down on your legs. Press your heels down, and once again, act like you could drag your heels back to your hips, and then using that strength, pull your spine out and away from your pelvis. Good, maybe you fold deeply. Maybe you stay in that upright or semi-upright position. And then release the work of your legs and just shake, 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 shake. Okay, so we're gonna set up for a Shavasana, and you've got some options depending on what props you have at home. So if you just had a towel or blanket, you're gonna fold it until it makes like this kind of shape. And then if you just had a blanket, you would lie back with your hips on the mat and your body on the blanket. And you could even fold that blanket over for a pillow. If you have a couple of blocks, what you're gonna do is stack one on the medium and one on the flat. And I've got a little space between. And then I'm gonna set my blanket over those two blocks. If you had a bolster at home, that would be ideal. But most people who are not yoga teachers they don't have bolsters at home. So this block and blanket setup, I think, works pretty well. And then the bottom block is on my shoulder blades, and the top block is underneath my head. So find your little bit of a restorative pose, and then I'm going to lift my hips, tuck them under, and drop them back down onto my mat. So set up your props, and if that isn't comfortable for any reason, you could go back to the blanket on the mat, or maybe adjust your blocks until you find the right space. And then we'll just be here for a couple of minutes before we come all the way down into Shavasana. So feel your shoulders release towards the floor, and you don't have to put any pressure on them. They'll just do that from the blanket, lifting the space of your heart higher. And as you relax your legs by letting the musculature go, you'll notice that your hips get heavier and heavier. And then even in this position, can you feel that column of light, or imagine that column of light reaching from the base of your spine all the way up through your body, past the crown of your head, past the very top of your head. A column of light that extends all the way down through you. So if you're comfortable here, you could keep this position, or go ahead and bend up your knees and roll yourself off of the prop support. And then move your props. You can take the blocks out from under. You can move that blanket or towel or article of clothing, sweatshirt, and put it underneath your knees. And then reposition yourself to lie back down on your mat for just a few minutes more. Shavasana. Let your hands go or rest them on your body. Come back to that column of light running through the central axis meditation. And then return to breath awareness as you picture your in-breath filling the central space of your heart, and your exhalation moving back out through the crown of your head. Inhaling light in, exhaling breath out. If you're still practicing breath and light meditation, let it go. And before you begin to move, become aware of your whole body lying on your mat. Really feel all the way down into your toes and in your fingers and the crown of your head and your belly. And if you can't feel them, notice that too, without judgment, just awareness. And now bring movement back, toes and fingers wiggling. Draw your knees up over your hips. Roll yourself to your side. Take a deep breath in here to the back of your body. And then press yourself back up to take a seat. Thank you so much. I'm folding my hands in namaste and I bow to each of you. Thank you for coming to class. Like I said, I'm going to stay a few minutes after just to check in. If you have any questions or if you just want to say hi, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I bow to each of you. Have a great day if you're signing off right now.